to success, and we know that that's a challenge that spans the entire company. It's not just a product challenge, it's a support challenge, it's a customer success challenge, it's a sales challenge, it's a marketing challenge. There's no group that doesn't touch this issue, which is why it's so near and dear to us. So with that, I'm going to start opening up the conversation, and in doing so, I'm going to ask the first question and then ask each of our awesome panelists to introduce themselves as they answer the question. You can obviously see who they are, but I want them to give a little bit of background about themselves. So, Amber, I will start with you, and I want each of you guys to answer, what is, when you think about user adoption, because user adoption might mean something differently to different folks, so what does it mean to you in your role as you introduce yourself, and how important is it to understand your users?
Hello, good evening, everyone. Amber Hack over at Springbot. Little background on Springbot. We're an e-commerce marketing platform working with small and medium-sized businesses to help them grow their online stores. Started out at the ATDC. Actually grew up with UserIQ there, and now we're based.
A little faster.
We did grow. Moved out or kicked out? I'm not quite sure. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, so came out of the ATDC, and now we're at Colony Square, right in Midtown. When I think about user adoption, to me, it's kind of two main points. It's users using your product or service successfully to resolve a pain point that they might have to achieve a business goal. And I think two words stick out to me when I say that: pain point and successfully. And so I think my team, I've been harping more recently about pain points and understanding what our customer pain points are. And I think when you can really dive into that, you can understand, okay, what truly are their business objectives? Because sometimes they may not know that. So identifying those pain points to see how your product or service can help resolve those, and then successfully. I think it's an interesting concept and sounds somewhat simple, but I think there's internal versus external messaging around that. To Springbot, what is successful is users logging in, creating actions, sending out emails, so on and so forth. But to our customers, success might be improving efficiencies within their organization. So I think for us, it's really understanding those pain points, how Springbot, product and service, can help address those, and by our customers' definition of success, not necessarily ours.
Hi, I'm Liz Pastor. I'm the Director of Support Operations at Mailchimp. And for those of you who don't know Mailchimp, we are a marketing automations platform for small business. We help small businesses grow and sell more stuff. And my role is in the support department. I actually don't have any support folks who talk to customers directly under me, but I oversee the strategy and making sure our support folks are going to be successful, as well as bridging the gap between our support department and our product teams. And I think we're going to get into that a little bit more later, so I'll save that for later. But it's a really cool and exciting role. And for me, user adoption is all about helping our customers grow. At Mailchimp, most of our customers start as a free account, and it's not until they hit 2,000 that they start paying us. And so that means they need to get in there. They need to be able to start sending emails, set up landing pages, do all the different things that are going to help their business and their company grow. Because when they're successful, then we're successful. And for small business, that means we have to really know our customers and understand them, because we're not always talking to a marketing expert, right? A lot of times we're talking to a business owner or a founder who had a really amazing idea, but doesn't know marketing, but they know they got to do the marketing thing. And so that's what we're looking at when we talk about user adoption at Mailchimp.
So I'm Dave Thompson. I'm Chief Revenue Officer at List Partners. We're home of two major brands, Winmo and Catapult New Business. So Winmo is our sales intelligence platform, and it's really for any sales teams looking to target national advertisers or national brands and their agencies. So we're really focused and split up in four different departments. We have a media team that's focused on selling to anyone that we call media, anyone selling ad sales. An ad technology platform group, a sponsorship group that's selling to sports teams and nonprofits, and then we have an agency group as well. And then we have Catapult New Business, and that's more of our service side. So we work with agencies to help them with really a wide variety based on the agency needs. So we'll help them set up their CRM, set up marketing automation, create white pagers, blogs, put content together, extract leads, send those over to our clients, all the way to actually tethering them to a sales director who does all the outbound calling, and we're generating warm leads and qualified meetings to them. So user adoption, especially for us on the Winmo side, is critical. One of the things that the most important KPI and the biggest thing that we look at, and I look at a daily basis, is retention. And we look at from every possible angle, and the user adoption is probably the most important KPI when it has to do with retention. So we do a plethora of things, and I can talk about that later, in terms of trying to increase the user adoption, and even what signifies red flags for us in terms of when do we know we need to take a proactive approach in reaching out to our clients, because we know there's a chance they're going to fall off and we're not going to renew them, they're going to churn, and we know that 2 weeks into their membership. There's some KPIs that we look at that I'm happy to talk about. That's Winmo and Catapult.
Hey everyone, Ryan Brown with Terminus. I'm the Chief Product Officer there. I am a product person, and so when I think about the questions, but I really think, first of all, to me, user adoption, like product people are always trying to create products that create value, and user adoption is the measure of customers capturing the value. And a lot of times we think, well, we created this cool stuff, and you know, I've had a history of creating lots of stuff, and sometimes it's cool and sometimes it's not as cool as I thought. And user adoption sort of fits in there to say, did the customer could they actually experience the value of what you think you created? And the earlier we can understand that signal, the better. So back to Terminus. Terminus is a company based here in Atlanta. We're about 170 people, a fast-growing, exciting company. When I got there a year and a half ago, it was 50 people, so it's explosive growth, and it's fun and terrifying all at the same time. We have a product that we sell to marketers, B2B marketers, helping them flip the traditional marketing funnel and do what we call account-based marketing, where they focus on target accounts and moving those accounts through the funnel with a focused effort with their sales counterparts. So we sell a product, and then we also support a community which helps B2B marketers transform their approaches and learn how to do this new form of marketing.
Brian, while you have the mic on that note, because it's a good segue to my next question. You know, so for those of you obviously hopefully are familiar with Terminus and account-based marketing, this is a new conversation, right, for marketing, and an exciting one, and a lot of it's changing marketers' traditional behaviors. And so I'm curious, like when you talk about addressing adoption and even measuring it, how are you thinking about it, Brian, in the sense of this is also new for marketers and this is new things that they probably haven't done before?
Yeah, and that's a challenge. I think most of us are wired to look at renewals and say, oh, okay, everything's good or everything's bad. And it really, you have to, and I think you guys were making this point already, but like, you can't wait till renewal to know. And whenever you're trying to actually transform the way somebody works or thinks, you have to find a whole different way to connect with those customers early on in the process. It's very difficult. I mean, we're learning every day how to do this, because we're trying to take a mindset that's been instilled into B2B marketing for 15 years and say, that doesn't go away, but you need to turn on a new part of your brain to do a different kind of marketing for your target accounts. And it fundamentally changes like every aspect of what they've been doing and how they've been working with sales. And so for us, trying to really understand what that customer journey looks like in their organization beyond our product is the thing that's most important. So yes, they can come in and use our product, but usage doesn't always equate to everyone renewing at the same rate. So something is happening in their company, and so we're working to find more ways to understand the dynamics that happen around our product, because it is a new concept and it requires a lot of change.
Right. Well, and Dave, you kind of opened it up with your comment, and I know part of what we want to achieve here is for you guys to leave with some specific examples of how people are tackling this. So I would love to hear more about the KPIs. You know, how are you? What are, not that this is necessarily what works for you guys would work for another company, but how are you looking at adoption and measuring it, and what are some of the specific red flags that you have that are indicators for you?
Sure, and we really have no data to back this up. My gut feel, I know everyone in this room probably hates it, it's the truth. My gut feel is that our clients determine whether they're going to renew with us within the first 3 months of their membership with us. And there's very little we can do from the 6-month point on to change their mind. So a couple things that we've actually had consultants in and analyzed a lot of data regarding our usage of our platform. We found that there are 2 main events that signify that the account is likely to churn to a great degree. And one of those is whenever we sold a new client and none of their users logged in the first 2 weeks, that was a huge indicator that in 9.5 months, or I'm sorry, 11.5 months, because we offer annual memberships, that client was going to churn. The other is at any point during that annual membership, if we had a user that did not visit our site, visit our platform within the 30-day mark, that was a key indicator as well that the likelihood that an account is going to churn. So with that data, with that knowledge in mind, what we did was set up a very proactive, proactive KPIs that we're looking at, but a proactive process for our account management team. And our account management team is the one that's handling all the onboarding, the customer support, but also doing the upsells and renewals. So they do it all. They're juggling a lot of things. So we actually have an email that goes out to our account management team right under that 30-day mark that identifies that one of our users have not logged in, and they've got a series of cadence outreaches that they're obviously picking up the phone and calling them, sending out emails, even reaching out to the decision maker on the account to let them know that one of their sales reps isn't logging in, not to get that person in trouble, but just say, hey, this person might not be with the company anymore. We want to make sure that we have the right users on there that are utilizing the data. So that has certainly, we've seen it help in terms of the user engagement a good bit as well. And also we're going in with, hey, we're happy to go through another training session with you. But at this point, 30, 45-minute training sessions, our clients don't have a lot of time for that. So what we started to do is have a power user series. And what we do is really focus 5-10 minutes on just some key features. It might have been a key feature that we just added, might have been a key feature that we know will help the vast majority of the clients that we're not seeing a lot of usage on. So we'll have those on a weekly or bi-weekly cycle, so that everyone's going in, understanding what these new features can do for me. It's not, the time isn't great in terms of, again, having a 30 or 45-minute conversation. We've seen a lot of good usage and it drive a lot of clients back to our platform. So those are a couple of things that we're looking at all the time. And obviously to combat any of the users that don't log in the first 2 weeks, right when we sell them, within 24 hours, our goal is to get them on a training, understand exactly what's going on with our platform, and get them engaged right out of the gate.
Yeah, I mean, onboarding obviously is critical, and there's been a lot written about onboarding as a key phase of adoption, but you even said it well, like products constantly evolve. So I'm a big believer that onboarding doesn't ever end. You're always onboarding, and so, there's onboarding and re-onboarding and reintroducing. I know, Amber, at Springbot, you guys are doing some interesting thing in that area too. Maybe you want to talk about it, because I know you've taken another look at how you guys do onboarding.
Yeah, definitely, and I think probably about a year and a half ago, we looked at kind of the customer experience, and the question is, how do we get more customers to always stay on board with Springbot? And we're a month-to-month subscription, and so every month we're having to show value. And so when you think about onboarding, you have to show value pretty quickly, right? Customers want to see it in that first 30, 45 days. And so about a year and a half ago, I found myself calling those customers that decided that they wanted to leave Springbot. Why did you want to leave? What could have we done better? What could have we done to keep you on board with Springbot? And I learned some things that I could share with product and marketing and so on and so forth. But I was just spinning my wheels. And I said, okay, let's flip that conversation. Let's call our best customers. Why do you like us? What do you enjoy about Springbot? And I think that that kind of change in mindset for us really kind of changed how we want to engage with our customers. And so at about that time, that's when we started truly understanding the experience, splitting up our team between onboarding and success. Onboarding for us is a little bit more high touch. We actually do a 6-step, if you will, onboarding process, but we looked at those customers who were doing really well and some of the metrics that we keyed in on to understand, okay, what are those best customers doing and how do we rinse and repeat, right? We want all of our customers taking advantage of those automated features first and getting things that they'll start to see time to value reduced, right? We want to make that pretty quick for them. And so we kind of implemented our 6-step onboarding process where we do go through calls with our customers. For us, calls are a lot better than emails because they get inundated with emails by several folks. So we set up kind of those training calls, but then we also use, shameless promotion, tools like UserIQ to help some of that in-app guided messaging. So the stuff, our launchers and tooltips and launchers, they can talk about the how-to of how to use this product or feature, and our team can talk more strategically about this is why you need to use this feature. And so we kind of changed the conversation on what good customers are using, how do we kind of implement that, and then use different health measures on stuff is, of course, we want to see them log in and measure sessions and engagement. How many actions are they taking? NPS score is one component of that as well. And then case management. How often are they emailing our team? Because we think pretty highly of ourselves. So we like to see us as a valuable asset to our team. And I think when we think about that, all in all, onboarding is just as much product as it is the service that we're providing them. And so it's definitely helped keep a lot of our customers more engaged with us in using the product.
Yeah, that's helpful, and because I think that for those of us hopefully in the room, and I know up on here, caring about user adoption and addressing user adoption is not just a product, but going back to my statement earlier, sometimes it manifests in a better support process or a better services engagement. I know, Brian, when we were prepping for this call, you were talking about the fact that some of the stuff that you guys are doing is experimenting with new services packages, right? That's not a product, not everything could be a product solution. Sometimes part of solving user adoption is with new services opportunities or ways to engage your user to better educate them or train them, right? So, okay, the next question I have is around alignment. So in that spirit of service and product and support, right, there's a lot, people that are in the roles that we are in around user adoption have to work often with multiple stakeholders in the organization. So Liz, you're kind of in a very unique linchpin role. So I'd love for you to talk about how is alignment happening in your company around user adoption, and what's working so far, what isn't, how is your role making a difference?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the teams that I manage at Mailchimp is called our Support Product Analyst team. We call them the SPAs for short, because that's a title that's a lot more fun. And so this is a role that's pretty unique at Mailchimp. What it is they're folks that sit in the support department, but they are embedded in our product teams. And so they have 1 to 2 product teams that they are embedded in, and they're in all of their meetings, stands, sprint reviews, everything. And they're part of that product team. And they're there to bring the voice of the customer and what we're hearing in support back into those product teams. And then to bring what's happening in the product teams and the changes in the product, because the product's ever evolving, back to support. So support knows what's going on and what's happening in the product. And it's created this really amazing bridge between the two departments. And one of the favorite examples of how that's worked out recently is we recently launched landing pages. So giving our customers the ability to create a landing page. And of course, like a lot of fast-moving technology companies, you launch things just maybe a little early, right? And anyone else ever done that before? I was in product for a very long time. So, and the page only had the ability to capture an email address. That was the one form field for our landing pages. Well, we got a lot of feedback and support that people wanted to add other form fields to the page. And so our SPA on the team, on the landing pages team, took that feedback back, and of course they had it on their roadmap, but it really shot up how quickly that got on, worked and prioritized on the roadmap. And then what I love about this is not only did we do that and we launched this feature for our customers that they were asking for and made landing pages better, we then, support had tracked all the users who asked for the feature, and we were able to then email them out and say, hey, you asked for it, now you've got it, you're able to add all of these form fields. And what we saw is people going back to their landing pages and publishing landing pages, maybe they didn't, creating new ones, and so it was a really exciting and great way to get customers and to bridge that product and support gap. So that's a little bit more about that team.
Amber, I'm curious from your perspective, when you were doing these kind of phone calls and sharing it, like, I'm curious to know, because you kind of took it upon yourself, which I think is a lot of times how user adoption initiatives start, is like somebody sees a gap and wants to solve it or wants to poke their head into something and say, hey, I think we could be doing this better, talking to customers. How have you seen Springbot evolve, and maybe it's still evolving around user adoption?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think at Springbot, we started leading our team started leading the way on user adoption and what that meant, which might be similar with some other companies. But I started making a lot of phone calls to, like I said, anyone that would talk to me. And then I started getting a lot of feedback. I'm like, okay, well, our team might be doing this or they might be doing that, but hey, I need to pull our product guys in here and they need to hear this customer feedback, or hey, I need to pull our CTO in. Like, I need you to hear this feedback, so when I come saying, like, we need to up this on the product roadmap, you get a little bit more buy-in. Donuts help sometimes too. We do donuts sometimes with the teams. But yeah, I think starting that conversation, getting people behind you rallying the efforts definitely helped. We've also since, as we've grown, we've hired a chief operating officer that both VP of sales and I both report into, which is somewhat new. We both used to report into the CEO, now we report into operations, which I think has helped tremendously in the sense that we get to now, we always kind of work together, but we all had our individual goals to hit, and now working kind of under the operations format, we're able to understand, hey, what's the best way to hand off from sales to onboarding? How can we make that seamless for our customers to feel like they're starting off on the right foot? Again, we've used tools. We've got product involved with all of our tools that we wanted to use, because there's a lot of value in the data that we're pulling for that. We launch features maybe a day too soon every once in a while as well, and tools like UserIQ and other tools help us really understand, okay, how many people are adopting that tool, feature, functionality, and we can hand that back to the product team and not only say, hey, this is what we're hearing on the streets, but the data helps us kind of share our message. So I think for us, moving into more of an operations type role and also having data to back us up has truly helped.
And Dave, in your role too, in sales, when you communicate, has the data helped you as far as alignment with your chief product officer and your product peers? I mean, as you guys are working on an alignment, I'm just curious to know how what's working and what's not, or what continues to be a challenge.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it helps out a lot. I think a lot comes to, regarding alignment. It starts at the top. It really does. So me having a really solid relationship with Billy, who's the head of product, and with Jennifer, who's the head of marketing, I think is really critical, because I've been in situations where you've been at companies and it's heavily focused on product, and they're the ones primarily dictating what's going on the platform. Sales guys are just selling that, or vice versa, where it's heavily sales and you've got a new integration every 5 minutes because they heard it from a client. Because anytime anyone in sales hears from a client, well, if we had this integration, we'd buy. They'd be like, oh, okay, we need that tomorrow. So it's understanding, being very transparent, getting the teams together, the product and the marketing and the sales team together, and really being very transparent with the timetables. And this is what we're looking at. And let's actually go in. Let's have a vote of what features we think will really drive the needle. And it's not just sales. It's not just product. It's not just marketing. but it's a mix of everyone getting together. And I think that kind of alignment, that kind of transparency is extremely important. And that's something we do with pretty much every single feature that we put out there, is getting that. And I think the buy-in is important as well, because if you have the buy-in with product, you have the buy-in with marketing, you got the buy-in with sales, everybody's aligned, everyone's really rowing in the same direction. So that's what I found has been really, really key in terms of product integration for us.
That's actually a good segue. I've got two more questions, and the next one, and I'll open it to anyone who wants to take it, is really, we've been hearing a lot about voice of the customer, right? And feedback is evolving, right? It's not just simple, it's not just NPS, which we've all heard about and hopefully are implementing to one degree or another, but it's other things like alignment with CS and being able even to get feature feedback and things like that. So I'm curious, anyone who wants to answer, what are some unique ways that you guys are coming together or collecting or defining for yourselves different types of voice of the customer feedback points that are unique or something that maybe this group could benefit from learning? Anyone have anything interesting on the feedback? Sure.
Yeah, so I mentioned our SPA team, and they're giving reports back into the product team. But one of my favorite things that we do at Mailchimp each month is we have a customer visit and a customer panel every month, and the entire company is invited. And so we bring 3 customers in, and they're there for the day. They can come from all over, and we make it really beneficial for them as well as for the company. So they start with just a discussion and a panel like this that they're getting asked questions, and we're learning more about them, about their business, about how they use Mailchimp. And then they get a afternoon with some of our folks to look at their account, strategize on how they could be using Mailchimp differently, how they could be creating different tactics or tools or get questions answered that they've always wanted answered. And then we have them, and we have kind of a happy hour type experience, and anyone from the company can come and sit in one of our porches with them and ask questions and talk to them about whether it's a specific product question because they're working on a product question, or just hearing more about running their small business. And so that's been a really cool experience because it gives everyone in the entire company the ability to hear about those pains and delights that the customers have in using your product. And because user adoption really does touch so many different parts of the company, it's important for everyone to know and understand the customers.
You do that every month? Or?
Mm-hmm. Monthly customer panels. Yeah, it's one of my favorite things.
Anyone else? Any other?
Sure, I'll take a quick answer. Internally, I think it's important anytime any of us capture an important story from a customer or experience, it's our job to then echo that in the organization and to recognize when it's a meaningful thing that would represent many customers, right? We don't want to obviously over-focus on something that's not representative, but like stories translate the empathy, and if you just put something into a spreadsheet, it loses all that. So I personally try and hold on to the important things I heard from a customer, and then find the right moments throughout the day to share those things with different people in the company, and it allows more people to feel the voice of the customer that way. Another thing that our CS team and our sales team and other teams do is we record every call, and then we'll tag other teams to go listen to a certain section of the call. And that way, because I can't listen to every call, I don't have time, but people will literally on their drive home, listen to the things that people told them to go listen to. And that's been a really cool way to hear more of what's happening on those calls.
That's great.
We use Gong. Yeah. Gong with a G.
Gong with a G.
The question is,
Uh-oh, this is going to get really deep here. I'm not a sales rep for Gong, but we do like it, so I'll be an advocate.
But does the sales or customer success person?
The CS team. Yep, the CS team, after their call, they'll go back and tag minutes in the call, and say, hey, listen to these 3 minutes, and they'll tag a product or UX person or their leader.
And one thing we do and we really focus on, and I focus on, is social proof. I think is huge. So it's one thing for our sales rep or our account management team to go in and say, this is how you need to be utilizing the product. But it's another to say, hey, here's another media company that's targeting the exact same types of contacts and companies you are. This is their words, how they're utilizing our platform on a daily basis to be successful. So we're getting a lot of testimonials built up. We've actually have a guy who's, about 25% of his time is just focused on reaching out to all of our power users to extract those testimonials and really dive deep in terms of how our clients are really utilizing the platform on a daily basis. And we're putting that out on G2 Crowd. We're putting various collateral together so we can really identify, hey, here's an ad agency in the Midwest who's targeting Fortune 1000. We have a fantastic testimonial from another client telling them exactly how they utilize our platform, use it successfully, why they've been a client for 5 years. We found that's really powerful.
That's great, Dave. Yeah, and you're listing all your examples. It's interesting because some of these are just really informal approaches. Like it doesn't, and I think the big takeaways I'm listening to you is that it doesn't have to be a company-wide or this big, systematized process. It's just asking good questions and sharing information, and sometimes that takes time. Like it's an extra step for you to your point to have to log it, share it, but the spread of that is has that network effect of being spread is really powerful. So that's very cool. Okay, last question, and maybe we'll go down the line. But one thing that I wanted to make sure we covered in this session, which is somewhat off user adoption topic a little bit, but more career oriented, because you guys are all at different stages in your careers, and as you think about user adoption, what advice, I wanted to kind of go through each person, what advice would you give folks in the room, maybe in customer success? All of you guys are in different roles, trying to address these problems. Like you guys are all in leadership roles. You have the ear of your CEO and boards, and as you're trying to elevate the conversation around user adoption and some of your lessons learned, what advice would you give to some of the folks out here? So we'll kind of go down the line.
Yeah, I think this sounds like a simple approach, but I think with everything you do, understanding customer first is important. I think everyone's always marching towards their own goals of bringing on new customers or sending out this new marketing material or going to this trade show and getting all this set up. But I think if you can be the person to rally people together around putting the customer first, everything else naturally falls into place. So I think that's kind of my first piece of advice, and the more that you can kind of share that within the organization, the more people can catch on to that and really rally behind that. And then I think the second point is having some data. I think we're at a point now where my gut feeling is usually right still on some things, but having data to go back to the product team or the dev team or our CEO and say, this is why we really need to reprioritize this feature on the roadmap, makes all the difference. The more that I'm talking to those high level people, it's the data. I don't have to fight a battle. The data did it for me. We'll keep it. Customer success, because I've been in that. It's becoming more data. Do you find yourself more in data than you were 2 years ago, 3 years ago? I'm knee deep. Yeah, and I think it is, and but for us it's helped. It's made conversations. So you're not always in the data. You're balancing the relationships with customers, and it's hard to be in the data day in and day out. Exactly, and I think that goes with prioritizing dev work and Jira tickets, and the more that I can point to a process of why we need to escalate an issue rather than, hey, this customer is really upset about it, it changes the whole conversation. And so I think for us that's been really helpful. So customer first, data, and then just being empathetic to other people in the organization. I think we don't always walk in everyone else's shoes, so the more empathy you can show within an organization, the more people are going to be willing to come to you, and it's good to have a lot of friendly people that you're working alongside.
The first piece of advice is pretty simple. Is just have coffee with one new person every week. And I know that that's kind of, it sounds easier to do in practice, but I started at Mailchimp 6 months ago, and at the last role I was in, I did a great job of meeting, knowing my boss and working with him, and then I did a really great job with my team and managing my team. I didn't do as good of a job of managing my peers and getting to know all of my peers. And so when I came to Mailchimp, I said, I'm going to really, know all of my peers and all of the people that I'm going to work with cross-functionally. And so I just said, all right, each week I'm going to meet with a different person. And all that was doing was planting seeds. And I just sat down with them, and I wanted to hear about them and hear about them and their role and what their goals were, what was going to make them successful, and share a little bit about me and my team. And then I've found, as I've continued this journey and I've continued in my role, that has really been able to make me successful because I know who I'm going to, I know who to talk to. I've already built a relationship with that person, and it wasn't because I needed something. I built it because I was curious about them and I wanted to learn about them, and so we developed a really authentic relationship.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I want to echo that. One of the things, definitely have a adoption goal in mind before releasing anything. We've been in many situations where felt it's the right decision, put out a feature, 2 months later, we're like, did it work? We're like, yeah, I think so. I don't know. Yeah, so I think people are happy. We had no idea, and we have an adoption rate, but we didn't really know a target before then. And one of the things, we are knee deep in data, like everybody here. There's more data than we know what to do with. I warn you to be careful about causation versus correlation, because we see that happening all the time, that we see data points, we see that correlation, we just jump to causation, and we make some assumptions that are not correct. So be very wary, just really dig into the type of data that you're looking for, and don't just assume because you see a PowerPoint slide with a direct correlation that's certainly X is causing Y, because you'll find out a lot of times it's not. So take the extra time, dig in deep. Don't be afraid in any leadership meetings or any other meetings. Ask a lot of questions to try to uncover really how they ascertain that information, because I think that's really important. Something we've seen a lot, that we've jumped the gun and made the causation assumption, and it's bit us. So be cautious of that.
Yeah, ditto to everyone else. So we went through this exercise. I was telling someone a minute ago when we were networking, but we went through this exercise of throwing out our core values at the beginning of the year. We had like 7 or 8 core values, and they were all like, really nice and like work well with others and smile and like just be a good person, and we threw them all away because no one could actually remember what they were, right? And we came up with two new core values, and we hashtagged them so people will remember them. And one of them is called Keys to the Ferrari. And I think my advice to you is to go back to your organization and take the keys to the Ferrari. Don't wait for somebody to tell you that you should solve something or do something. Just dig in and make it happen. And one of our beliefs behind Keys to the Ferrari is that one idea can change the world. You never know where that idea is going to come from. It might not come from some leader in the company. It come from anywhere. And good ideas come because someone is grounded in a lot of insights and information. So going sort of full circle on this, if you can understand your customers, whatever your role is, if you can understand your market, your competitors, the things that are sort of the dynamics around the mission of your company, then you could be really powerful and come up with all kinds of ways to make a big difference in your company. And as I think back in my career, the people that were sort of essential to the company were the people who had the insights, and it's because they were exposed to the most information. And so put yourself in a position to learn as much as you can, and then take it upon yourself to figure out what to do with that and turn it into some actionable thing that you can go do and make a difference in your company.
Great.
Thank you, Brian. I like that one. I like the keys to the Ferrari. You know, it's funny because I'd seen it. Now you just explained it to me, so I didn't make the full association. So thank you. All right, so now we're going to do my favorite part, Q&A. So I'm sure you guys have some questions.
Question I had was around metrics for release features. Hi, Beth. So you roll out a new release. You know, I have this dream where like product is working with customer success. They're all trying to drive adoption of that feature and learn. And so it sounded like maybe someone's doing that. So awesome. And so I want to get a sense from others on the panel, like how are you working with product on goals for feature adoption? Because that's where we're at about user adoption. So how are you engaging on that specifically? I don't know if we really nailed that yet, so maybe you could talk to that a little bit.
Who wants to take that one? Thank you, Andy Powell, Head of Customer Experience and Success for Excel Health.
And I've only had one beer, so the questions get better.
Yeah.
So I do think it is a team effort, and I think that like we're using UserIQ internally, and we're just getting up and running with it. We're super excited about it, and we know it's going to give us a lot of intelligence that we need. Outside of that, for us, it's like literally tracking a goal of how many customers we expect to be able to use some new feature in some period of time, and what are we actually doing to operationalize their usage of it, and then like every week we're talking about how many more customers have used the feature and reporting on that metric. So it's like names of companies, and then you have some goal. And so like we rolled out this feature last summer called Account-Based Visitor ID, and it would determine the companies that were on your website mapped to the data in your CRM system. And for us, being a display advertising solution that was driving engagement on the website, it was really important that our customers adopted this feature. And so we set a goal, and everyone teamed up and rallied around getting customers enabled on that feature. So it was like how-to content, it was customer webinars, it was videos, it was every customer call, it was goals and metrics behind it, and we ended up, you know, with like 90% of customers adopting it from that time till the last month or so. And but it took a lot of focus. There's other things we've done where we didn't put a focus on it, and then you know you look back and you're like, well, how come no one's using that feature? Well, it's because you didn't put anything behind it. So it just really has to be driven throughout the company.
Yeah, I hate to say it depends, but it depends on the goals. Like what are you going to put out there? It really depends on what you're after. For me, a lot of times, you know, when we're adding new features, there's an upsell component or a revenue component. So it's really easy for us to be, we want to have, you know, in 6 months, you know, $100,000 netted from this specific feature. But you know, I don't have a great answer. I don't know if anyone will, in terms of, you know, what that goal should be. You know, in terms of it, you know, is it 90%, is it 80%? Really kind of depends, and a lot of what we're doing these days is a very customized approach where it really depends on the client and the segment of that client, and it's going to depend on the you know, who we're targeting is where the goals and the metrics lie.
So many times user adoption requires change management. Brian, I think you talked about that with ABM kind of changing the game in the marketing side. I'm just curious what you guys have done internally to foster change management and show your customers the value of how change can happen in their organization and why that matters to them.
And I think we've done a little bit of that. I've been with the company just over 4.5 years, and so we're on onboarding 3.0 version, right? So we're continuing to evolve that, and I think when we can go to the customer and explain that based on other customers like you have seen great success if we onboard them this way using this 6-step approach, they start to get a little bit more buy-in. And then I think once we start talking about that time to value, that we're reducing that for them. And by the second call that we have with them, they're capturing newsletter subscribers and they're sending out triggered emails. It's making what we're saying validated. So it's not just kind of talking a big game, but by implementing how we've recommended onboarding them, they're seeing quick results and can start to see that value right there. So that's been helpful to be able to say what you're going to do, and then go ahead and do it, and then tell them what you did. Kind of approach.
Hi, this is a question for Liz. I wanted to hear more about your support product analyst role, because I read an article about it and I wanted to know what are more of the day-to-day responsibilities of that role? Like, is the objective to be more of on the support side, or are they also sort of responsible for training on what product releases are coming out, things like that? Because as an agile company, that's a concern as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you saw that article. It's a great piece. So we call our SPAs double agents because they really are expected to be on both sides, the product side and the support side. And so a little bit more about their day-to-day. They work really closely with, we have a role at Mailchimp called our ASTAs, and they are kind of a higher level of support. And so when something can't get figured out, or there are issues, they're the ones who are really reporting it and putting those tickets in. And so they work very closely with that role in understanding tickets that might be coming into support and issues that we might be having with the app. But then they're also going to all the product meetings, and so they're going to their, for the teams that they're embedded in, they're going to their daily stands. They're giving real-time feedback as far as changes that the product team might be making, or decisions that the product team might be making, and how they think that'll impact the customer and impact support. And then they do a lot of reporting as well, and taking, this ocean of support feedback, because we're talking to thousands of customers every week, and really boiling that down to show, like, these are the things that are happening in support. These are the changes you could make that would be most meaningful. And then coming back to support, they send release notes out to the support team. They might be working with agents as far as betas that we're doing, and things along those lines. So it's a really cool role, and really exciting, and we're still kind of figuring out just all the different pieces to the role. It's a team that's grown a bunch over the past year.
All right, here. Hey, this question is for you, Liz. Once again, I guess you're pretty popular here. One thing that kind of jumped out at me is your customer panels, which is really cool. I guess kind of going on with the buy-in on that, are you just bringing in customers that are happy with your product, or are you bringing in customers all across the spectrum, the ones that are, super fans, and then the ones that, are kind of on the verge of churning as well? And with that, kind of what was the process to involve everyone into that, so you're just not getting happy fans that are telling you how awesome you are?
That's a great question. And so our research team leads that effort. And so our research team, Mailchimp has always done an amazing job, and I think the company has grown so fast, so well, by talking to their customers. So that's not something that's new to them. I joined the company 6 months ago, and they've been talking to their customers since they started, and so it's very much in their DNA. And I don't know exactly how they choose the customers. I know that they're people they've met before on customer visits, because our research team will go out to different cities, and while they're in that city, try to talk to a group of different customers at all different stages of using Mailchimp. But I know that they're definitely not just super fans. Our CEO, the first thing when he talks to somebody about Mailchimp, he'll meet somebody, they're like, "Oh, I'm a Mailchimp customer," and they want to, say great things, and he's like, "Okay, so tell me what's wrong with us. Like, what do we need to be doing better? What do we need to be doing differently?" One of our values, we were talking about values before, is humility, and just never assuming that we know what's best for the customer, and always listening to our customers. And so it's definitely not just about the super fans, it's about listening to all customers.
We have one more question, and then we'll probably wrap up.
All right, look at me. Hey guys, open question here for all of you. So most of you have actually talked about adoption for your direct, purchasers, right? The people that you are actually buying your product. But how about their customers? Are you guys measuring any of their adoption for how their customers, or the people that you're actually selling your product to, are actually adopting your product?
So I think I know what you're saying. So, you know, our clients are obviously in sales, so they're selling as well. So the trick for us, if we can get and identify their key wins, and that attribution is to our platform, that's gold for us. So, you know, some integrations with CRM, so you can go identify that this contact, this information actually came from our platform, and it ended up in a key win, is huge. So we're certainly thinking through a lot of that, of how to identify and attribute their wins, their key successes to us. And a lot of that is going back to what I was talking about before, social proof. That's one of the best ways of doing it, is actually reaching out, having those conversations with clients. And we found the best way to get testimonials is frankly, if you get someone that's interested in doing it, write the testimonial yourself, send it to them. Are we good to go? Yes or no? A lot of times they're just going to sign off on it, and you're good to go, and you've got a very obviously catered testimonial. But if you're relying on someone else sending you that testimonial, it's going to be a while, and they might not do it. But I think the key to that is social proof. So we try to attribute and extract from all of our clients any key wins, big deals. We take that, put it on G2 Crowd, put it into testimonials, put it on our website, collateral, everything we can do, and get that out there. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
If I'm listening, the question is more, how can you use adoption to measure the business impact that you're making to the customers, right? And then share that back. Yeah. I mean, obviously, each of these businesses have different business outcomes, and I think that's the bigger next step of adoption. I mean, I think you're asking a very thoughtful question, and I think it obviously varies by business, but I appreciate it, because I think that is where a lot of companies want to go, and a lot of customers come to us about that, like how do they map that you know, the kind of the what people are doing to the bigger why or business impact that their problem that they're trying to solve, and mashing those up is not an easy one to do. But I appreciate the question, and we need more examples, because I think that's a tough endeavor. I know you guys are doing that on the e-commerce site, your shopping cart, and obviously with ABM. Like as you guys are getting marketers more savvy on ABM, you'll be hopefully measuring the effectiveness of how is linking the adoption of the Terminus platform to how effective ABM is working for them, right? That's like the next step.
Thank you. Yeah, it takes. Yeah, so we've been on this journey of how do you tell a customer they've been successful with something that it can take a lot of change in their organization, right? And there's different moments, and so we sort of like started by saying, well, when you see more deals close from your target accounts, so you know it was successful, and that's where the company started, like, you know, years ago. Well, that takes a long time for someone to know they've been successful, and so we help them measure their impact of what they're doing, and so. More recently, we've gotten to the point where we can show you by the level of engagement from the people our customers are trying to sell to on their website, which is something we can start measuring immediately. And so it's a pretty big effort, but the CS team started to do QBRs, and if you're doing like a strategic business review or a quarterly business review, it's like very, very important, and a lot of times it is the thing that causes customers to renew, because that's the moment where you can reflect and help them reflect on all the things they've been able to do. And you can determine where they're at, and then you know where you need to get them to by the next quarter. And so while it's a ton of work, one thing we did was we started to build metrics of success for our customers. So we went into the product for them, pulled out all kinds of data, made all kinds of insights, and brought it back to them in a deck that they could share internally. And it takes a lot of work, and ultimately the team now comes back to the product and says, product team, like, hey, just build this stuff. Why do you make us do this? So there's a lot to learn from it, but I think it is absolutely critical that we help our customers know that they're successful. And a lot of times customers of any software tool just don't have the time. They go in there, they turn it on, they use the features, and unless it's really obvious to them what the value is right away, like, they just don't have the time. So I think it's up to us to show them what success looks like.
It's a
Okay, so I thought it was really interesting when you said that we can predict if they're going to renew it between month 1 and 3. I think that's really accurate what you said. But my question is, what are your action items for your CS team once it hits about month and a half where it looks like they might not renew?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we hit them from multiple angles and multiple individuals. So we have the guy that's like I mentioned, going after our power users and trying to get testimonials. But one of the things he's spending some of his time as well is addressing our low usage clients. So he's targeting that. So he's trying to identify why they're not logging in. A lot of times it's just that person has left the company. We need to get a new user in there who's going to be more active. But we're just following up in a lot of different ways. It's email, it's phone calls, it's social media. It's trying as many different angles. And again, it's not just targeting that specific individual, but it's targeting multiple people at the company. So there's call it a shotgun approach associated with that as well. So we want to identify the decision maker who generally spend a lot of money to implement the sales platform, and they want their sales team using it, frankly. So reaching out to them and saying, hey, just a note, we just want to make sure that Bob's still there because he hasn't been logging in. If he is still there, I guarantee Bob's probably going to have an email in his inbox from his boss about, hey, why are you not logging into the sales intelligence platform? What are you doing all that? So that kind of shotgun approach has worked for us, and just being very diligent. I find a lot of times what happens is, you'll get that one email and you'll make that one phone call and then it just completely falls out. And you don't remember about that account until 11 and a half months in, or 10 months in, you're talking about the renewal, it's too late, it's over. So being very diligent, using Salesforce, we use Salesforce, Task, things like that, stay organized, and hit them up multiple times a week for multiple weeks until you get an answer, until you figure it out. And again, reaching out to multiple individuals at that company. So it's a pretty quasi-systematic approach, but we're hitting up anyone we can to try to encourage usage or get someone on that's actually going to use the product in the platform. Sure.
Awesome.
Thank you guys. This was a lot of fun. I want to thank our panelists. Yeah. Thank you.